Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS. And today we are hanging out with the happiest of happy Ron. But first, we're going to kick off with one of his songs, and this is The Lost Art of Love.
I still wanna find my heart a place in a world that's forgotten how to live with grace. People moving so fast that they never learn to dance, to build a life that starts with romance. The lost art of love. The lost art of love. She kissed my lips, and we knew when they touched that we were finally home. We didn't need much, but time can take away its gifts. And now she's caught, wrapped in its mist. The lost art of love. The lost art of love. Should I just give up and leave the dream behind? Or do I have the faith to risk it one more time? Thousand memories deep, I need to be ready to be found by what I seek. I know it won't come back till I start to let it in. It's time to learn the art of love. Lost art of love. The lost art of love. The lost art of love. The lost art of love.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the show. I'm Jade. Good to see you all. I hope everything is good. Running a little bit behind for myself today. It's been a crazy morning, but these are the things that happen when you're a live streamer, yeah? Alrighty, so welcome to the show. We have somebody on here today who I am really excited about. That was The Lost Art of Love by the amazing happy Ron Hill. I first came across Ron Hill, I think, on Pete Johns' channel and was like, my goodness, who is this incredibly uplifting, charismatic, unique character that is on my screen? Spewing out these absolutely fantastically happy songs, but not always happy. And today, hopefully, we'll find out where that name Happy Ron came from and a whole lot more, like we do normally on these shows. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you all the one, the only Happy Ron Hill. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Great. It's an honor to be here, man. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time.
You, yeah, and I see you already have an instrument in your hand.
Well, this is my ukulele guitar, which I actually almost never go anywhere without. It's the instrument of the future, and the future is now.
The future is now. And you're living in the past, and I'm living in the future. I love it. Ron, I want to kick off with asking you, where did this Happy Ron come from? Where did the happy come from for you?
Well, the first 30 years of my life, I was a pretty miserable person. I had pretty undiagnosed autistic spectrum disorder, and also I had PTSD from leg trauma because my legs didn't work very well because I had a bad hip. And around 93, 94, I kind of hit rock bottom. And then in 95, I went to a retreat where a guy was saying, why don't you try some happiness? Oh, and they had you pick another retreat I went to. They had you pick a name that everyone in the retreat had to call you during that weekend. And it was pretty wild retreat, actually. But I thought, well, I'm a pretty miserable SOB, so I should go ahead and just call myself Happy. And so everywhere you go, people go, how's it going? Happy? It's like people would push my happiness button. And by the time I was done, I'm like, I'm not going to go back to being unhappy. I like the happiness part. So that's a 95% true story.
So has it worked for you? Are you a happier person overall?
Absolutely. The last first 30 years of my life, I was about as miserable as you can be. And the last since then, since 95, I've been on kind of almost a steady climb of happiness. I've gone to every kind of workshop and every kind of possibility thing to make me happy, and to explore what it means. I mean, there's all sorts of theories about what it means to be happy, and I've kind of read them all. And I don't actually consider myself to necessarily be the happiest person. All I know is I'm happier than I used to be, and that's the important part. And so yeah, it's definitely worked for me, and I haven't looked back.
Love it so very much. I'm going to kick off with the hard-hitting questions. What does music mean to you, Ron?
Music is a way of connecting to the people and the world around you that is pure emotion and connection and secondary intellectual. And people that are really traumatized, we tend to go up into our head and kind of talk out, like, Frank Zappa said, I think that person's had too much to think, and very or we go into mysticism and we start doing, stuff out in the cosmos or whatever. And all of that's fine. And the beautiful things to explore, but music is a way of connecting to the world around us and to impacting the world around us. And I've been on stage 3,000 times, and I'm probably still more comfortable going on stage in front of a bunch of strangers than I am meeting people one-on-one in most circumstances. Because I've probably been on stage more than I've met people, although I've met quite a few people by now, obviously.
In saying that, I always find this an interesting question. Now, be aware, I don't have any question. Only the first few questions are normally planned, so I go off script a lot. When you play gigs, do you find it hard to talk to people afterwards?
I experience something when I go right off stage. I feel a sense of almost like more than I should, the sense of vulnerability. Like I'm almost like I kind of want to, if it goes well, I almost don't want to break the vibe. And it's something I work on. And yep. I do tend to find it a little bit hard to, afterwards, I do tend to find it a little bit hard to talk to people, depending upon their circumstance, and something I'm consciously working on, because you should, if you've just won over a crowd of people, you should just go out and be like, hey, let's party, but I sometimes I do shut down a little bit. I think my old way of working comes back in a little bit, and so it's something I'm very conscious of.
it's one of those things that I've always struggled with myself. Like when I perform live, I put in 190%, way too much. So by the time I'm off stage, I'm drained. I feel like I've just had sex for 2 weeks, and I don't want to talk to anyone. I want to roll over and go to sleep. And I found out, like, for a long time, that people thought I was arrogant and they thought I was rude. And it was like, man, yeah. So it was really hard to change my ways and then flit around the audience afterwards when I just done a show and cut my arm open, you know?
And a lot of the really successful performers actually can do that. My hero is a guy named Steve Poltz, and he just shines his light so brightly on stage. And then when he gets off, he's like, hey, how's it going, everybody? And he's talking to everybody. And they're really, a lot, not all of them, of course, a lot of, a high percentage of people who are performers are like me, where they've had a history of having a kind of a social problems. And so, and I've had people think I was arrogant, certainly in the past. And and I really wasn't. I was just more, kind of shut down. So I experienced that a lot, and something I'm consciously working on. And the trick for me is to just realize you change these things. Sometimes you change in an instant. Sometimes you change a little bit at a time, and just let yourself evolve in the way that works. You can't really force yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had some thanks, Leela, for the advice in the chat. Hopefully I've fixed the audio now and put him up a little bit louder. Tech issues, man. There I am. Tech issues. All right. So, do you recall the music that was played in your household when you were growing up? And who was it, and has it influenced you?
Well, when I was younger, my father was a chief petty officer in the military, and he became on and off a Jehovah's Witness. And he was also he was basically a shouter. And my mom she liked Lawrence Welk. But music was not a big deal in our household. And for me, it's a very common story. Around 1980, I kind of heard the Beatles for the first time, and I never, looked back. I listened on the headphones, obsessively to Beatles music. And so I always like to say that the Beatles are the number one influence. And then my second biggest influence, and you're not going to hear anyone else say this, but my second biggest influence is the solo work of Mr. Ringo Starr. People forget that in the early 70s, Ringo had a bunch of hits. He had a hit before John Lennon had a hit. And John Lennon had a number one hit, and John Lennon wrote a telegram saying, how dare you, please write me a song. And then something happened around 75. He became kind of a drunk, and he just fell off the planet in terms of having hit songs. But if you ever listen to his Ringo album, which is called Ringo, it's just like a lost Beatle album. And then all the Beatles play on different tracks. They all wrote different songs for him. He wrote a couple of number one hits, and he just was that type of guy that just wanted to have fun, and still does. He's still around, and he wants to have fun, and he writes songs, and not all of them are that deep or serious, but music doesn't have to be deep or serious. So he's a huge influence. And then, of course, like Neil Young, I really liked Neil Young when I was going through my depressive phase, because he was all dirty and depressed. He looked like he was kind of depressed himself, but he would just rock, and he didn't care about being clean or anything. And then the Talking Heads, the Police, and a huge fan of this guy Steve Poltz that I told you about, who's still playing.
I think Ringo's going to outlive the Beatles completely. He's going to be the sole survivor.
Yeah, well, Ringo and Paul, they're both 80 now.
Yeah, I know.
They both look like they're 60 or 50. They could, they're doing great, and good for them. They all had, Ringo had a bad period of being a drunk, basically, in the 70s after the Beatles broke up, and then he cleaned up his act, and he's been like walking the straight line, and good for him.
Absolutely. I don't know what it is they put in the water in Hollywood, but it makes people slap each other. It's great. Funny enough.
Yeah, I got to tell you, to me, that was really, I like Will Smith in terms of the way he puts out all that positive energy. Mm-hmm. He's just such a loving person, and who knows what he's like in his real life, but he always advocated being loving and positive. Yeah. And if he'd done something like that privately, I would have been disappointed in him for sure. But the fact that he chose for whatever reason to do that publicly was pretty shocking. And to his credit, he said that it was inexcusable, but it was pretty shocking.
Yeah, the internet exploded, didn't it? The internet went crazy. I was just sitting there going, who cares? Just rich people slapping each other. Whatever, man. Let rich people do rich people things because I've got to pay my bills. You know?
Exactly,
People have got to obsess over things. Do you remember the first album that you purchased and was given as a gift?
As a gift. First album I purchased had to have been a Beatle album. I used to travel like on a bus to go get the back then it was like $10 and you can get the British versions of the albums, which up until Sgt. Pepper were different. They had more songs on them. So I travel and I get all the British versions of that. So all the Beatles albums were number one. The first album I bought that was current at the time was Fleetwood Mac's 1982 album. I don't remember what it was called. But they were just starting to go a little bit past their big prime. So my dad gave me a Beatle album one time, and he's trying to make contact with me, but he left it out in the sun, so it was all warped. And it was one of those situations where he gave it to. He knew something was probably wrong with him, and I didn't have the heart to tell him. I said, "Oh, it's fine, Dad. It's all good." I didn't. Because it's one of the few nice things he ever did. So.
Yeah, right. So savor it as much as you can.
Savor, yeah. So,
all right. Let me ask about music. So, when did you start playing music? Was it always something that you wanted to do? Was it a school thing? Did you get, like all of us? Did you get forced to learn the recorder?
No. To my great detriment, I really didn't play any music until I turned 30.
Past really? 30. Wow.
And I really didn't do it until 40, and I really didn't seriously do it until I was 50. But when I was at 30, after I did the happiness thing, one guy had this kind of find your voice and learn to sing in public, and it was like a kind of a very spiritual class on music, and they had us go and sing at the final class was a show where we went up and sang in front of all these people that were supposedly our friends. And I got my first hard lesson in what it means to be a performer. Imagine you're in a room and it's all your friends supposedly supporting you. You're terrified out of your skull because you are someone who's basically autistic, autistic spectrum, and you're terrified out of your soul. First time, all the fear. And we're sitting there, and the show was a little bit late, and somebody was sitting there, I was talking to my friend, and somebody said, "Well, we're getting impatient that this show isn't starting on time." And the other guy said, "Yeah, you get up there and sing something." And I'm like, that was certainly like I played 3,000 times now. That's certainly in the top 5 worst things that's ever happened. It was the very first time in the exact spot you think you would be the safest at. Your friends, it was crazy.
Do you often think about that performance when you go on stage? Is that something that comes back to you when, we all bomb. Like I've done stand-up comedy. That's the worst. When you bomb as a stand-up comedian, you just want to disappear into. So do you draw on that experience, or what do you draw on when you're struggling with an audience?
I draw on, one of the reasons I think that like a lot of autistic spectrum people get into music is, think about like the more people that are further along the spectrum, like they'll sit around spinning plates. Autistic people tend to like repetition.
Right.
They tend to like doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's like a and what do musicians do? But we do the same thing over and over again. I basically have 3 hours of music that I play over, and I played some combination of those songs, 3 or 4 hours of music, 3,000 times on stage. So you really just stay with your performance and let the chips fall where they may. And if there's any, like I'm here, I'm at an undisclosed location right now, and I've been playing at this place where it's an open mic, but they don't really pay attention. It's like a bar kind of situation.
Right. Yep.
And I'm used to people singing along. They don't sing along and everything. But if you look, 20 people, they're not rude, but they're just there to eat. They're not really there for music. And you always can find one person, not always, but usually there's one person who's kind of paying attention or I've been fortunate to have my girlfriend with me and she's always paying attention. And so you focus on whatever they do. And then the second worst case scenario is if they don't pay attention at all, well, then you can do whatever you want to do. No one's paying attention anyways. And then the worst case scenario is if they walk up and slap you, then you got to punch them in the face.
I want to be at that gig.
Oh,
I want to see Happy Ron get violent. No, I don't. I don't want that at all.
I'm actually trained. I'm a trained boxer, and I studied what's called Sistema, which is the martial arts that the Russian mafia uses. And it's very tricky stuff. I do regular practice with a good friend of mine because the idea is it's never the guy that is in the Russian mob. It's never the big tough guy. It's the little guy like this with a cigarette who'll walk by you and just tap you in a certain way that's barely noticeable, and you fall to the ground. And part of the secret of it is you just get used to the idea. Like if somebody hits you, that is simply a physical sensation. You get past the emotional element of it and just simply even let your body go with it. And you don't. Usually if someone, like when Will got slapped, he was, when Chris Rock got slapped, he was remarkably composed.
Oh, yeah. Situation. He had his hands behind his back. His feet didn't even move. It was amazing.
Exactly. And what you do, and to his great credit, what you do is you learn to kind of take a punch, and like if you fight against it, then you're going to hurt yourself. Oh, someone slapped me. Okay, boom. You learn to actually protect yourself. And I haven't been in that many physical confrontations, but I've actually, because I was so traumatized from an early age, I've really studied the body and how people deal with trauma, how people deal with violence. And so I'm much more potentially formidable if I need to protect my girl or something.
Speaking of that slap one more time, I'm going to bring this up. Somebody sent me this. Can you believe it? Somebody saying that he was wearing a fake cheek when it happened.
Okay, I have information on this. That has actually been determined that photo is actually fake. The part here
clearly
is clearly fake. Yeah.
Clearly. It made me laugh though. Like people actually believe. I mean, the internet is so weird.
The thing is, I think there's a certain percentage of people who are just cynical about Hollywood and anything, and so they think anything anyone does in Hollywood is just an attempt to get attention. Yeah. And that's not a bad philosophy, because 99% of the time it is. Everyone wants to get it. We're all trying to get attention in our own ways. However, this particular circumstance, I don't believe was even, this is not the type of attention that those people would want.
Well, you have to, I think to some degree, living in a place like Hollywood, like you have to be that hungry to virtually do anything to get somebody to notice you, because there's so many people going there with stars in their eyes, hoping to make fame and fortune.
Well, I mean, you have to, if you want to do this, you have to absolutely love it. And like whenever I have, a bad experience or not so good experience, I say, that's the price I pay for the good experiences. Very few people have gone through. I doubt anyone's gone through, being a musician or performer at any level and not had a bad experience.
Of course,
it does build character. It is actually. I used to be very vulnerable to BS like that, and now, when you've been on stage 3,000 times, it's like you almost feel invulnerable. And I very, very rarely get nervous at all about anything.
I've only had one unfortunate incident on stage where somebody jumped up on stage and punched me in the head. But I did ask for it. It's in my metal band FMC, and we toured this place called Adelaide where Pete Johns lives, and we drove all the way to Adelaide. Took quite a long time to drive there, and I was a baker at the time. We baked these bread rolls that were in the shape of a penis, and I gave them out to the crowd while I was on stage, and one guy cottoned on that there was a whole bunch of guys in the audience all chewing on dicks. And he was like, what are you saying? And he jumped up and went, I'm not chewing on a dick. And he punched me in the face. I loved it. Well, it was rock and roll.
One of my worst experiences was, and it wasn't, I have a song, it's called Dickless Wonder. And it's one of my, it was a song I wrote that so shocked me. It was one of the reasons I gave up music for like 6 years. And I never performed it. And I just played it recently in Reno, and they loved it. It was in a coffee shop. They loved it. But I played it one time at this kind of nicer place. It's a bunch of young kids, and I didn't really introduce the song, and they're all just sitting me like, and it's like it was probably my worst example of misreading a crowd in my life, because they were kind of right. I should have done that second or third. I should have done something, And that's part of the reason why, if you were to listen to my album, Terribly Happy, about half of the songs, a little bit less than half the songs, are kind of little South Park type songs. They're a little bit dickish, but they're fun. All meant in good humor. And then I just had some bad experiences with people that were just that way all the time. I were just dicks all the time. I was kind of attracting the dick crowd. And I said, well, I'm not really like that. I mean, I'm a nice guy. I'm a good guy. So that I literally that day I wrote the song "Don't Stop Playing," and then I wrote "Terribly Happy," and then I wrote "Pretty on the Inside." So I wrote all these songs that were more fun and edgy without being potentially, slightly politically incorrect.
This is Dickless Wonder, I think.
Good. And you sing along. I'll tell you when. Should. Are you gonna be the one to show up? Are you just another dickless one? And you gotta feel that we're full of one and forever be known. Sing it as a dickless one.
Wow.
He played it, not me. It's his responsibility. Or she played it, excuse me.
I didn't imagine that side of you. I'm sure I've heard that before somewhere along the line, but I think I'm more used to the happier run. I love it. See, that's right up my alley.
There's about 4 or 5 songs that are like that, and on my album, and I never played them on Pete Johns' show because it doesn't sound like it's Pete Johns' style.
Yeah.
But I do play it on Thomas Christ's show, and then on Ron I think Ward's his name. Yeah. Some of these other songs are a little more. I'm happy I can break out these edgier songs.
So you said you picked up playing guitar like later on at 30 or whatever. What did you go through how did you learn to play guitar? I'm interested to know how you learned to play guitar.
Well, I have a condition. I was born with a deformed hip socket. So I walked with an extreme limp, especially when I turned about 50, my hip stopped working. So I got my hips replaced, but I'm actually disabled in the sense that I can't actually sit for very long periods. I can sit for about 2 hours, and then my body kind of turns into mush.
Right.
So my hand-eye coordination has always been very poor. And one of the changes that happened was when I went to a guy who does this thing called somatic experiencing, which was about getting more in touch with your body. And you just kind of like feel how your fingers feel how and then after I had my surgery, there was a lot more hand-eye coordination kind of developed because my body wasn't so stiff. So, and then also by this time, of course, computers became available. So it's kind of that combination of all of those and learning. The secret to learning guitar is you just do everything real slow at first. And I would kind of approach it like most people did, like this. And I would end up stressing myself out, and for everyone does that, but I did it times 10 because of my trauma, basically. And when working through my trauma, I started to get more and more connected into my body. I'm studying this thing now called organic intelligence, which is really good about just learning to connect to the world around you and to really be just into your body more. Because again, before I was like this, I was like, nice to meet you. And I was just, I was like one step away from being like a homeless person, for a big part of my life, or a computer nerd, extreme computer nerd, and nerds are my people. I learned to embrace my inner nerd and kind of evolve. You have to embrace your inner nerd,
So I'm gonna play a song. I'm gonna play "I'm Just Here to Be." I'm just here to be here for you. Do you want to? This is it looks like it's a live song. It's only a short one.
Yeah, there's This is a song I wrote it originally as a Mr. Rogers song, and then me and my band got a little drunk, and we turned it into a drunken Mr. Rogers song.
Nice.
And I wrote it, and it was actually and we sped it up, so the live version is significantly different than the studio track. And I actually kind of like the live version a little bit better. The studio track sounds like Mr. Rogers, and studio track is just one of my favorite sing-alongs that I do. About a third of my songs are sing-alongs, as you know, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. And when I come back from this song, I definitely want to talk about your band and live performances, and we'll say hello to everybody in the chat. So thank you all for being here, guys. So this is I'm just here to be here for you. And this is so grab a drink, chill out. I'll put you on mute, and we'll play the song. We'll be back shortly. Relax, folks, and we'll see you again in a minute. Boom.
Not here to show you just what to do and how. I'm not here to make the pain go away right now. I'm just here to be here for you. I'm just here to be here for you. Yeah. You say you don't need anyone to help see you through. I've heard that before. We both know you do. I'm just here to be here for you. I'm just here to be here for you. And if you don't believe me, I'll try harder. I'm gonna stay right here until you know the truth. I don't have a magic wand, don't have a golden ring. I don't have all the answers or know everything. I'm just here to be here for you. I'm just here to be here for you. It's been too long that you've been down, and I know it hurts. But time will speed up, you'll move on. That's the way these things work. I can't keep you from the fates that we all face. I'm not here to take your memories and hit erase. I'm just here to be here for you. I'm just here to be here for you. One more time. I'm just here to be here for you. Thanks so much. I'm happy around. Hillary, Andy, I can hear that song on YouTube on your Happy Ron.
That is an awesome drinking song, man. That last one.
It is, yes. It helps if you drink.
Oh, I really couldn't help myself. Just kind of want to swing.
Exactly.
Sorry, when I listened to that the other day, it's a great drinking song, yeah. And you're like, it is. It helps if you drink.
Yeah, I'm supposed to have a mug doing, I'm just here to be here for you. I really want to record that like in that style and do like an Irish version. I think it might be like a good Irish drinking song, you know. I played enough Irish bars in my life.
Oh man, so I'm going to say hello to everybody here. So guys, if you're here in the chat, type something now so I can see your name and I'll give you a call out. So Clayton Von Kluge, hello. Brad Example, Ed B Metal, JDL, who else? Black Covers, Ingo, hello to you. Liamanik, there you go. Tremor Bear, Lou Reality, Kim Harden Hudson, Scott Borthwick, Thomas Christ. Who else do I see? Ivan Idea, hello to you. Anyone else who I haven't said? Cy Effin says something. I saw Marshall there as well too. I'm scrolling and trying to find people's names that I may. Lily Pillies. Guys, after today's show, we'll be sending you all over to the Lily Pillies channel because Lily Pillies is about to release an album directly after this show, so that's really exciting. Who else have I got? I saw Pete Johns earlier. He flits in and flits out. He's always somewhere in the
The
background.
great Pete Johns.
Yeah, he's always somewhere in the background hiding there. Russ 8889, Joe Glenn. Hello to you all. Thank you all for being here today. So tell us about your backing band.
I'd like to, if it's okay, I'd like to say thank you to everybody. I can't actually see the typing right now because my screen's too small. I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Pete. I'd like to thank you as well, Jade. People, yeah, these little shows. I mean, I think I can speak for a lot of people. These little shows mean a lot to all of us, and this whole little community that we have has been really fun for me because I play a lot, but I don't normally get to hear people typing how much they like what I'm doing. Like when Pete plays one of my songs and people have 20 comments on it that are positive, it's usually more comments than I get when I post a video. So it's been a big treat for me. I'm very grateful to Pete and to you and to Thomas and the entire community that we've built here. It's something very special, I think.
Awesome. It's always a pleasure. This is long overdue. I should have had you on so long ago, but here we are now, and that's the good thing. I want to talk about your band. How long have you? So you've got Paul, I think, on bass. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
And Andy on keyboard and Rob Garbo on drums.
And how long have you known these guys? How long have you known those?
Well, Rob, I've known Rob. If you listen to my album "Terribly Happy," which is my only professional studio track as opposed to home tracks, he was the only guy who played on every song but one. I've known him almost 20 years, and when I made my album, it was kind of like I was kind of like the novelty act back then. I still kind of am in a way, and I got this producer, a well-known local producer, and I said, yeah, it gave me a really good rate. And then I said, oh, by the way, there's 22 people that want to play on it. So if you listen to the album, there's nobody who is on more than half of the album, except for the drummer who's on every song but one. And there's no two songs that have the same combination of instruments. So it's almost like a Sgt. Pepper thing with me in the middle of it singing out to him going, wow! So that was one of the greatest honors of my life, that with the exception of 3 people, all the people played for free on my album. These are really the top of the line people in San Diego. So I've known him for 20 years. Paul Tillery is actually my main right hand man now. I haven't seen my other guys since before the pandemic, but Paul and I played every week when I'm in San Diego. We do the live show that I do on Monday nights at 7. And he's my right hand man. He's the second nicest person I've met in the music scene. And then there's Andy who plays keyboard and sometimes plays guitar, and he's a really interesting character.
Yeah, because I've watched you live on Facebook many, many times, and it just seems like you, especially you and Paul, like it feels like before I knew anything about you that you really are in tune with each other, because he feeds off you, you feed off him. You don't even really need to say much, it seems, and he knows what you're going to do. It's a really symbiotic relationship from the outside looking in.
Yeah, well, one of my mentors, Stephen Memel, says that amateurs practice until they get it right, but professionals practice until they can't get it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you play with a band, especially, it's not like you're not going to make a mistake or whatever, I guess, but you really want to, you want to get to the point at some point where you're just playing and naturally feed off of each other. And I don't even have to tell him what song I'm going to play. He knows how I introduce the songs. He knows by the chord progressions, and so I do with Paul especially. I don't have a set list per se. I have a set list, but I never go in order. I just play what I feel like at any given moment, and Paul just jumps into it. And if I have a new song, I'll bring it to him, and we'll practice it until we can't get it wrong.
And being in a band is like being in an open relationship with a group of people. It's a hard thing to maintain.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and there are people these days who are actually choosing in their life to actually have real open relationships outside of music. I don't know how they do that. I find it incredibly hard to maintain the relationships in a band because things break down. Music tastes change.
Smith.
Yeah. And not only
a lot of people say what happened, his explosion had something to do with that, and I know people that have tried to do it, and it's not for me. I mean, God bless them if they can get it to work out, but
yeah,
it's not for me.
And like playing in a band, over time, people change. That's the thing. Musical taste changes. Your values change. So it's really hard to keep on top of that and continue to write music that you're able to play and communicate as a band. The struggle is real.
Well, it is, and there's a real trick to it. One of the things I learned, if you're the leader of the band, almost always the music is going to be more important to you than the rest of the band, unless you're a true band like the Beatles, which they were all relatively equal partners. But for the most part, if you're Happy Ron and my band, and so you have to realize that, for the most part, most bands, unless you get up into the real professional levels, most people who play in bands are really tremendously underpaid, and and you can't pay them as much as you'd like or anything if you don't make any money, but you can show them appreciation. You can give them the time and the spot to actually to shine. Like if you look at all my live videos, I have the name of my band members right at the top. Right in the video, the first thing. So if anyone wants to know who that person is, they can find them. I give them the credit and I give them the solos. And if you just give them that little bit of acknowledgement and appreciation, it goes a long way. It also helps not to have people in your band that are assholes. Or sociopaths.
Yeah.
Is it the drummer or the bass? So I've always found the two nicest guys of the top three, including Paul. Two of them were bass players. Of the two nicest guys, the top three, they were bass. I think bass players tend to be nice because they're kind of used to kind of being like underneath the surface. It's boom, 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 drummers can at times be the most obnoxious because they want to be out front, and the guitar players are kind of in the middle sometimes, because they want to, that's my experience. I mean, I played with hundreds of people,
Bass players seem to be nice, and that's why they get trodden on the most. Drummers are angry because nobody ever helps them carry their gear. That's why they're angry. They just want somebody, just pick up the bass drum, please.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I've totally lost my thoughts over that. So when the pandemic hit, because, all right, so as we saw from that last video that I played, you are a very interactive performer. And, a lot of your songs, you have call outs and people call back and there's call and response going on. That's obviously an integral part of your music and your performance. How did it feel when the inconvenience, aka the pandemic, struck, and you were now sitting there in front of a screen, performing live and not getting that feedback?
I had a very unusual experience with the pandemic, because most of my life has been unusual. But quite literally, the pandemic, the period of time of the pandemic has been the best period of time in my life. Not because of the pandemic per se, but partly because I've been on this upward thing. But it's strange enough, it was also the most social period of my life, because what happened was right when the pandemic started, I finally retired from my job, Costco, which was always a very difficult job for me to do given my limitations, my disabilities, and I moved into a senior community. So right in the middle of the pandemic, I'm living in this big community of 500 people. And I walk right outside my door and there's like 10 people to wave and say hi to. And it was perfect because it was all outdoors, this big garden area. So we could, pass and say hi. So I actually had, in many ways, more of a community during the pandemic, not because of the pandemic per se, but during the pandemic that I've ever had. And then also I started to do online open mics, and I started to do the video I just showed you was a wonderful place called Lestat's, and I think that was like literally one of the last weeks, that video, before it shut down, and it never reopened after the pandemic.
Wow!
And I played there every week like 15 years. So I said, well, okay, I can't save Lestat's. I can't get Lestat's to open up, but I can continue to play with Paul. So he and I started to play every week at 7:00, the same time Lestat's used to happen. And he lives right down the street from where Lestat's was. And we just played every week for the entire time of the pandemic, just him and I. And it was different. And that's also partly, or maybe a couple months before I started getting the Pete Johns thing. It's different because you don't get the audience interaction, but you do get people typing nice things.
Yep.
You don't get people talking as you're performing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And then I was also very fortunate because, strangely enough, about 9 months into the pandemic, a music venue opened in San Diego. It's one of the weirdest things. It's a little kind of a hippie place. It's in Ocean Beach. It's called the
Template.
The Template. And they opened, and they would only allow 40 people in, at a time because that was the restrictions at the time. You had to play behind a plastic sheet. And then for 4 months they shut down because we went into a higher level of pandemic, and then they opened back up. So I found that this new place developed during the pandemic that was actually certainly one of my top favorite places to play. They were very, I like to say that they're like the hippies that bathe. They're really together hippies. They're not like, they don't seem like homeless people. They don't. Ocean Beach is the hippie town in San Diego, and a lot of the people there like living in the gutter and stuff and all that stuff. And it has one of the biggest head shops in the country called the Black. And so it was a really nice place. It was really classy. It was almost like going into the movie Yellow Submarine. They had all these funky things, and so it became one of my new favorite places to play. And so, life happens.
It's interesting, because we talked about this with a lot of people who've been on, because this show was born from the pandemic.
Absolutely.
So, and a lot of artists agree that if it didn't happen, we probably wouldn't be at the level that we're at making music, and wouldn't have released so many things. A lot of this community may not have happened. And it's
absolutely,
it's a really, many of us, like myself, find it really hard to balance the thought structure of, oh my God, this has been one of the best times in my life to flourish.
It is.
Well, at the same time, there's been all these people around just dying. It's just, it puts so much in perspective.
It is. And I to me, people say, when I think about computers and the internet, I think, I know people talk about all the problems with Facebook and all these issues, and they're very real. But my life, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. The computers. I do all my music on the computer. I've met all three of the important female relationships in my life through computer. I love computers. I love the internet. I think it's wonderful. There are real serious problems with it. But if you use it the right way, as I think we have. I haven't ever not gone out and done something because I wanted to, do something on the computer. I still have, it's helped me develop socially. And, I really am someone who, I wish I'd been born 20 years later, because I've been into computers since 1981, but the internet didn't really come into play until the last 15 years. I was on computer networks before there was the internet. And
so
I
was
think
I.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, and I think it's something that, people talk about the dangers in it. And I do check my phone way more than I should.
Don't we all?
Absolutely. I do that. And there are things I do I shouldn't, but for the most part, I'm just very grateful that we have this, and we've created something that's special. I used to drive, I first got my first serious music lessons. I used to drive to LA 2.5 hours each way to have a 1 hour songwriting lesson with a guy in LA. Now, of course, I could do it in my underwear on the internet. So we're just very blessed in these ways. And I'm not trying to be Pollyannish and say, there aren't bad things about it, but we're very blessed to live in the time that we do in many ways.
Absolutely. And I think, we, for all the amazing stuff that we have, we do focus way too much on the negatives. And it seems like increasingly we kind of looking for something to hate on more and more. As somebody, who called Happy Ron, who puts out, happy music, how do you deal with haters? Do you have haters? Have you had people attack you over your music or being overly happy? Because I can just imagine people being pissed off that you're happy.
I've had any number of things, and great thing about the computer, block.
Yeah.
You look on my Facebook right now, you're not going to see any negative crap. People fight, people have arguments. I post things, and but if there's any ugliness, any racism, any sexism, any anti-baby Yodaism, anything like that, boom, you're gone, done. And if you disrespect, and I'm a left-wing guy, but I'm pretty open and tolerant to all different beliefs and viewpoint. I'm sure people get mad at me for being too middle of the road sometimes, but I wish life was like that. Some of the bad experiences I had with people, I wish I could have hit a block button, but thank you, computer. There's the block button. So I literally don't. And sometimes I think, should I fight with someone if they say something nasty? I say, well, why bother?
Yeah, I wish we had a block button in real life.
Exactly. I had a song. It was really kind of a bad song. It goes, I wish you had a mute button. I'd push it every day because I realize you have nothing to say. Mute button, mute button.
But the problem is with the mute button, I'm sure I'd be muted. So I'm sure I can get.
Well, that's the thing, though. If people, I've heard your music, and people can like or dislike what they like. There's
Absolutely.
a billion channels now, you know?
Absolutely.
And if you're going to spend your energy hating on something that has nothing to do with you, then you're not worth responding to.
Yeah.
And I posted something a couple of weeks ago that said you'll always be criticized by somebody doing less than you, not more than you, almost always.
Yeah, I had a guy on Facebook the other day abuse me from one of these groups, one of these music groups on Facebook, and for, I don't know, it's a long story, but anyway, it was nothing. I really did nothing, but he just calling me an asshole, and then he sent me a friend request, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to let him in and let him be a friend for a day, and then block him. And it was so much fun this morning blocking him, and he probably still doesn't.
People. People say that is the secret to handling abuse of any kind. If you can, and it's not always possible, if you can, just kick the abuser out of your life in whatever way. 3/4 of the problems I've had in my life is that I've chosen to be around people that, for whatever reason, there was a bad mix or there was abuse. And the moment I said goodbye, I said, okay, I don't miss you.
Yeah, and I think the key to it too is, and I think a lot of people get this wrong, is they get rid of somebody out of their life on social media and they make a scene about doing it. Where the key is to just remove them and don't say a thing. And most of the time they're none the wiser and there's no conflict at the end, because it's the conflict of saying, I'm going to remove you from here, that inflames it and makes it worse. So I have a bunch of friends who just have a whole lot of people on their social media that they dislike, and they engage with them every day. And I just go, why do you talk to them? Why? Like, just remove. Exactly. Like, it's so easy.
Yeah, remove them. It's a secret to any relationship. There has to be a commitment to treating each other well. Secret to bands, secret to romantic. If you don't have some commitment to at least treating each other with respect, then how are you gonna where are you gonna get? Matter of fact, I have a song about that. Would you like to hear it?
100%. Yes, indeed.
It's not easy to be free. That's how it should be. We argue over what we believe, but we're not gonna solve anything right here. We need to agree to disagree. I might prefer to stand and you might want to sit. We all do things a little differently. I'm glad that we are free to disagree. Sometimes people don't agree. Seems all right to me. But why do we have to be mean? I won't call you weak. Please don't call me freak. I'll listen to you if you listen to me. I might be headed left, you might be headed right. We all do things a little differently. I'm glad that we are free to disagree. I've been to many places that spoke with just one voice, but when I looked into their faces, I saw they had no choice, and I knew we need many viewpoints. I like what's in the center, you like what's on the side. We all do things a little differently. I'm glad that we are free to disagree. It's not easy to be free. That's how it should be. We argue over what we believe, but we're not gonna solve anything right here. We need to agree to disagree. We need to agree to disagree.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Believe it or not, that is my most controversial song. I was playing it one time, And people, I'm just saying, let's not kill each other. That's all I'm saying in the song. Let's, okay, I don't, whatever. That's all I'm saying. And sometimes people think, well, you don't hate this group, you don't hate these people. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, let's not kill each other.
They'd be an
I had
asshole.
some guy totally rail me on stage. I played it, and he was on next. He goes, well, some people are just wrong. You got to hate them.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry to offend you.
Yeah, some people. Look, there are two types of people. Two types of people on this planet: assholes and not assholes. That's it. I don't care about gender, sex, race, whatever. Just don't be an asshole, man. It's simple. I'm going to play a track here from our selection of videos. I want to get some background on it because it's a beautiful video. This is a version of Terribly Happy with Happy Ron and Miss Sarah. Do you want to give us some backstory of this wonderful video?
Well, what happened is Terribly Happy is the most important song I ever wrote because when I first got into happiness, I mean, I'm not like feral. I don't walk around going,
Yeah.
or like Will Smith is in public, at least until recently. I'm not that type. I wish I was. I wish I was like just glowing love all the time. But to me, when I wrote that song, and I realized it was about life can be rough, but let's try to be happy anyways. It's about a guy struggling to be happy as opposed to necessarily the expression of pure happiness. And I went to a songwriting retreat, and they locked us in a room in groups of 3 with 2 strangers, and we said, let's all throw out words, and the woman goes, terribly, and I go, happy. So we wrote this song, and it was like terribly happy, and I'm like, oh, and we each wrote about a third of it. It was a total 3-way collaboration, and I was like, oh, no one's gonna like this song. What's terribly happy? That's just what terribly happy. So we went out and played it for the big group of 50 people, and of course everybody sang along right away, and it became my most popular song of all time. So I'm like, I've never doubted it. And then I went to a couple years later. I went to a retreat with Bonnie Raitt's bass player, and I had a couple of weeks off, and out of nowhere, I saw on the internet there was just a Facebook thing saying a songwriting retreat. So completely flying blind, I paid for this retreat like a day before it was going to happen. And there was a guy, his name was Freebo. And his picture, he has very frizzy hair. And I thought he was like this kind of, hey, I'm Freebo. I thought he was like this kind of geeky kind of guy, but he was actually a very serious, thoughtful person, and it actually was a big shift in my songwriting because it helped me bring out the softer part of my music. And one day I was literally just playing, and the little girl that was there just walked up and started singing along with me, and a guy set up a camera, and like within 5 seconds this whole thing had developed, and I sang 3 songs, and this was one of them.
Wow. So it's completely off the cuff. Awesome.
Completely.
I love stuff like this. It just blows me away. So we'll play this video, folks, and we'll come back. Oh, somebody's put in the chat here, so I need to address this. I think Kim Harden Hudson said, is this the first time somebody's played live music on here? And it's like, no, actually. So I think we've had Jordan Rudess played his iPad on here, and Dan Baker played his shovel guitar. Of course he did. And now Happy Ron. So I wish more people... Oh, no, hang on. And also, who else? Somebody played brass as well. What can I think of who it was? It'll come to me. Somebody else did play as well. And I can't think of who it was. But anyway. So let's play this song. I'll try and rack my brain. And we will see you shortly, guys. Make sure I've got levels up and all this jazz. Alrighty, let's go.
Trees for 28 years, been looking for ways to pack up my tears. 'Cause I can pack groceries. I write my songs, I make them snappy. It makes me feel terribly happy. Terribly happy. My girlfriend got pregnant, she was sick all day. While I built the crib, and she felt terribly happy. Terribly happy. This part is for you. If life gets you down, turn it around and be terribly happy. Terribly happy. If this record bombs, that's okay. You know I'm gonna have plenty more to say. It's all of the people like you that lead along the way. When I know this, I feel terribly happy. Terribly happy. Terribly happy. Terribly happy.
Awesome. Pretty damn cute. What can you say?
She was good too. She was cute too.
Somebody wrote in the chat here. Let me go back. And thanks. Yeah, I did remember, Russ. It was Satish Robertson, so who played a trumpet on here. So we've had some live performances. Somebody wrote, where is it? I've got to find it now. It's funny. And it says, it's a good question, actually. I wish I'd have thought of it. I think it was something to do with you would be really good. Here we go. I tell you, Ron would totally fit well into a Sesame Street clip.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a video of Kermit the Frog singing my song "Ordinary Me." It's up on YouTube. It's Kermit. Yeah. When I went to that retreat from the video you just saw, I wrote this song called "Ordinary Me," and I thought it was the first time I really got a softer way of doing a song. It almost sounded like a different person because up until then I was like, and I wrote this song, and then I came back and everyone was shocked because my voice had just shifted and changed, and it was one of the big changes in the history of my professional life. And then someone said to me, that song would sound good if Kermit sang it. I'm like, what? That's my serious song about my heart and all blah, blah. No, Kermit the Frog would be great for that song. I said, oh, and of course they were right. So I got a guy to sing it like Kermit. If anybody want to look it up, just look at Kermit the Frog. Kermit sings "Ordinary Me." It's up there somewhere.
There it is, right there. Awesome. So, I'm curious to know. Like, I would think that you would be. I would think. Have you played like hospitals or anything like that? I just think what the music you write would be a really uplifting thing to do that kind of stuff.
I've sang in front of groups of autistic children,
right?
And people, that are almost nonverbal or whatever. And what's really interesting is when you do it, and my bass player's daughter is autistic. It's in one of my videos. We do a tribute to her. Autistic people, but they don't have language, but their biology is basically the same. Obviously, they're still people, and so when you do sing-alongs with them, it's an interesting experience because you're communicating with someone who you can't necessarily communicate through with regular language, and you don't even notice in that situation that you're dealing with people that are unconventional, and except for occasionally they'll make a random noise. It's very kind of unusual, but so it's been very rewarding to me when I've done that, and I stopped doing it because of the pandemic, but they're starting the process back up again, so I'll probably be doing that again.
Yeah, I just think you'd absolutely cane at that. I know if I was sick in hospital and you rolled in, I would be really happy because I've been in hospital for long periods of time and it sucks. And so when somebody comes into a hospital and you're trapped in there, I mean, you can come in there and throw things at the wall, and you're utterly entertained, So it's like getting a new diamond. It's something new and shiny, and you get so excited when you're trapped in a hospital. I know music really. When
I had my hip replacement surgery, I was in the hospital for a month because my surgery was, my doctor said it was 1 out of 100 the worst hips he'd ever seen. And when I was in the rehab part for 2 weeks, I should remember this, but I had something like 17 visitors. I had like 3 a day. And people say, "Oh my God, wasn't it hard having a surgery?" It's like, no, it's sitting at home having a party. People coming into, and it would end up being just a very joyous thing because it was one of those moments that remind you how many people that you do know and how many people that you've touched that you wouldn't necessarily see all at once, but they all took time out of their day to come visit me. So I didn't actually. To me, it was a transformative experience. And aside from one moment where I pulled a muscle and it hurt like hell, it was actually a very positive experience, which again, I was very fortunate because most people in the hospital are not having positive experiences.
Yeah. So. I want to ask about your album. So you've got one album available on like all the major releases like Spotify, all that kind of stuff. Do you have plans to release a new album on those streaming services?
Yeah, I have about 35 tracks that I've recorded. The Lost Art of Love, the first one that you have. I have tons and tons of songs up on YouTube, and I'm trying to, when you go to Spotify, it's more of a permanent thing. So as I keep tweaking my production, I'm like trying to figure out in what form to release. Such I just released a 35 song album. So I was thinking about doing collecting all my songs that are like love songs, like Even the Hardest Heart, and making an album that way to kind of make up for the offensiveness of Terribly Happy. And I'm still debating what's the best way to take these tracks, because they one of my mentors, Chuck Cannon, said that tracks are never finished, they're only abandoned. So I still consider them all to be works in progress. So you can get them all on YouTube and you can get them all on SoundCloud and Reverb Nation and all that, but I'm still trying to figure out what form to release them permanently on Spotify, because I have 3 albums worth of material.
If you were to I guess I want to get to this kind of point. What do you use to record music? Do you have like a go-to setup? Do you use an iPhone? Do you use a computer? What's your actual setup?
Well, my entire secret sauce, and I'm actually a representative somehow there's a term for what I am, but Band in a Box is my favorite program in the history of the world. Yep. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened in the world. If you use the old versions, forget about what you've heard in the past. If you heard whatever you've heard, forget about it. Unless you are the greatest guitar player in the world and you have access to the greatest musicians in the world, I recommend everybody get Band in the Box. It actually is a program. You just type in a chord progression, you pick a style, and it actually uses loops of actual people playing, not MIDI tracks, but actual loops of the actual playing with all the nuance. And it will, within 10 seconds, it will actually create a backing track. And I'd recommend everybody that's, and even if you eventually, which I may eventually hire a bunch of musicians and do it that way. But even if you don't, it gives you so many ideas. I think it's like $600 or $700 for the top of the line version. They gave it to me for free because I'm a representative, but I cannot highly, highly recommend it enough. It totally is, it's one of the top 5 best things that's ever happened to my music. So I use that, and I load those tracks from there into Cakewalk. And then sometimes I add guitar, but not very often because I'm not as good of a guitar player as the ones on there. And then I have Paul do bass sometimes. And then I do my vocals, and I use Melodyne to pitch correct my vocals. I had a great experience with Melodyne, is that I was famous for singing out of tune. And about 7 years ago, I got Melodyne. I actually looked at the notes. I said, oh my God, I really am really amazingly out of tune. So whenever I write a new song, even the second or third draft of it, and usually my songs go through about 20 drafts, I'll record it with Band in the Box, and then record a vocal, and then I'll pitch correct my own vocal to make it almost, relatively perfect, even if it sounds raw, and then I'll practice against my pitch corrected vocal. So that's literally how I learned to be a good singer, by listening to my own voice singing the songs. And then when I do the final version, I go to sing it, and it's usually almost perfectly on tune. So that's again, computers kind of saved my ass and helped me to become a good singer that way. And ironically, people always say to me, "Happy Ron, you're such a natural singer. I'm so glad you don't use Melodyne or screw up your voice." And I'm like, I use it all the time. On the final version, I just use it very sparingly. I don't try and sound perfect, but I use it to just correct it and get. But I'll take 5 or 6 different takes and edit them together. But I use it very sparingly on the final version, just to make it not sound terrible. But yeah, so yeah, another program I like is. There's a program called Transcribe ! Where you can take a song and you can change the speed and change the pitch of it. And that's very helpful. I've taken all the Beatles songs and lowered them, most of them down 4 or 5 notes, so I can sing to the Beatles for the first time in my life, because they're actually in the key that I sing in. And that's a very wonderful little, and I'm sure that there's variations of that for iOS and all that. Anything that allow you to adjust the pitch. Matter of fact, the Dancing in the Dark that I did, which is my most famous cover now, I simply took his original, I slowed it down 1/3 to be 2/3 the speed, and then I lowered it about 6 notes, and then I just copied that, and it ended up sounding really cool. I copied all his inflections and stuff. So.
The software just continues to get more and more crazy. I downloaded something the other day, which I saw on Facebook, funnily enough. I think it's called RipX, and I downloaded the trial, and it removes whatever you want from a song: vocals, guitar, drums, and it does it so well. I can't work out how it does it. It's ridiculous. Like and you can actually see the vocals that it's removed, and see all the inflection of the vocals. It's totally out there. It's definitely
It's called RipX.
RipX, yeah. It costs a lot of money to pay for it, so it's not something that I could see myself spending a few $100s to actually own. But to just experiment, I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, the important thing is to get all the to use the technology to make music easier for everybody, and we're so blessed to be able to have the technology that we do here. As long as you don't overly rely on it, you still got to create your own art. But I'm people don't think this way about me, but if you go back to my I have a video of me doing my song "The Mean Therapist Blues," one of the first videos on my YouTube channel. I was not, this is 3,000 shows ago. I was famous for not being very good. But technology, if you use it right, can really help you to be good. I'll play this little guitar and I'll play songs, and people say, "Oh, you're such a natural." I go, "Nope, I'm the least natural musician you'll ever meet." Yeah, I use the technology, and I use the time to actually to improve very slowly over time.
I'm just bringing up your YouTube channel as well. How long have you had your YouTube running for? Because it's very organized.
15 years. Yeah, I put a lot of effort. I put all my videos, I put a lot of energy into it, because I think a lot of people consume music to YouTube nowadays, and it's I'm very careful. Like when I do those live performances, I'll actually take when I do the live streams with Paul. Whenever we have a really good performance, I'll cut out that one song, and if it's the best performance ever, and then put it up on YouTube as a separate video. That's why there's all these live videos. And they're always the best performances I've got captured, because I've captured 100 performances of that song and took the best one.
I'm always interested to go back on people's YouTube channels all the way to the first video.
Go to the second one, the one where I'm bald, the Mean Therapist Blues. You want to play a little bit of that.
Sure.
It'll shock people.
Sure. Let's go back 15 years. I implore everybody.
Well, that was 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That was
right.
20 years ago.
I implore everybody, go to everybody's channel and go and check out their first video. It's normally eye-opening. Let's bring this up here. There we go. Give it some sound. Why do I not have sound? Ah, that's why. Here we go.
Mean therapist blues. Okay, happy, Ron? Take it away.
Thanks. That was like a band in the box track.
She, all you ever do is talk about yourself. Do you ever even think about anyone else? You're just like him, just like all the rest. I said, what's the problem, lady? You're my therapist. I got the mean therapist blues. Mean therapist blues. And I should have known that I would lose. You're gonna lose, you're gonna lose. And get the mean therapist blues. Mean therapist blues. She said it's all just denial. This thing called happiness. You're really quite unhappy. You just don't know it. Soon will be unhappy as me. I said, I think it's working. That made her happy. I got the mean therapist blues. Mean therapist blues.
Oh, that didn't take long. They're clapping already.
I should have known that I would lose. You're really screwed, you're really screwed. And get the mean therapist blues. Mean therapist blues. She said, don't run out the door. I want to share some more. I just need a few more clients, and I'll finally get that Porsche. Can't you get a lot more screwed up? Just think of all you'll be. I said, I used to feel good, but now I finally see. I got the mean therapist blues. Mean therapist blues. And I think I know what I need to do. You know what to do. Just ditch these mean, oh so mean therapist blues. Mean therapist blues. I got the mean, the mean, therapist blues. Thank you.
That is how you command an audience. Utterly. No, from the second you walked in, you had them eating out of your hands. That is a pro. I think Tom wrote that in the chat. That is a pro right there. Unbelievable. It's amazing. It amazes me, Ron, that it took you so long to actually start making music, and you're so natural at it.
Nope, not natural. I had to work at it. Well, I'll tell you a story about that. And this is actually a little serious. In 1993-94, I had this really horrific experience with a therapist. And I was basically autistic spectrum, and I got really shamed for being too introverted. And it really, really, really was hurtful to me. And this is like 3 or 4 years later, I started doing music. And so I started writing songs. I wrote like 2 or 3 songs that were love songs, me trying to. And then I wrote the Mean Therapist Blues, and I thought, oh, this is just a little. Who's going to relate to a song like this? It's about this weird thing that happened to me that nobody's going to get. And the first time I played it, I could barely play piano. I'm going, I got the mean therapist blues, and the whole place just cracked up. I mean, I was playing really crappy, thumpy piano, and I had to stop playing. I'm all like, and I kept playing, and I wrote another song called Enough, You Are Enough. In the early versions of that, I played them, and people were like, oh, whatever, that's a love song. I wasn't very good at how I sang it, but people just instantly took to that. And strangely enough, it was something funny, but it was also incredibly personal for me. It was incredibly like something I wouldn't have thought people would get, and everybody loved it every time I ever played it. So there's something about being that reality of the truth of it came across, and actually singing that song ended up being a very important healing for what had happened to me. And then also for, in general, my social fears and anxieties in general, which, are now far less than they've ever been in my life. So there's something about being real, even or maybe especially through humor that people can relate to.
Yeah, and people say that music is the best medicine, but not only is music the best medicine for the listener, but often it's for us writing it and performing it. Like every time I sing my song, Do What Makes You Happy, I feel like I'm a good therapist to myself. I feel a better for it. It's like this release that I can't get out just talking about. Does the same thing happen for you with that?
Yeah, I think the trick is you take your reality of who you are, and then you kind of, package it or shift it into, you have to still communicate in a way. You find a way to communicate who or what you are. One of my mentors, the great Chuck Cannon, who wrote many number one hit songs, he said to me, Happy Ron, if you want to write a good song, write about what you want people to know about you.
Yeah.
But if you want to write a great song, write about what you don't want people to know about you.
Yeah.
And if you want to write an amazing song, write about what you don't want to know about yourself.
Absolutely the truest words I've ever heard. Yeah, it's absolutely the truth. When you bare your soul, it's so rewarding. You don't need a bad therapist. I've tried. Well, I used to be a therapist anyway, and most therapists need a therapist. So that's the problem. But yeah, bearing your soul is just so. I know I've had Brad Example on the show, and he plays gigs naked. I've done theatrical performances completely naked in front of an audience. When you have nothing left to stand on, it really builds your character. You become a much better person. I'm so blown away that music has, we started off this by asking, why happy? And it just feels like this whole happiness journey for you in music has made you a better person.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate because, like I said, I kind of started on personal growth right before I started on music. And there's always been this sort of, they've always gone on both kind of at the same time. So like a lot of my songs, people will say, oh, you say something very profound in your song, or it has a deep meaning. And a lot of times it's me adapting or learning from lessons I've learned from great masters of philosophy or personal growth and stuff. So a lot of my songs could be seen as love songs, or they could also be seen as personal growth songs, or both at the same time. And so I've been very blessed because I've always had something to write about. So
I normally around this time start preparing to ask the question, what apps you use to make music. Did you have any? Because, I have this overwhelming urge for today's show to ask you to play music instead of I don't know, if you have some apps, I'm more than happy to bring some up. But
I've already told you the apps I use.
Cool.
I don't use.
That's awesome. I would, and I think the audience would agree. I know you're holding that lovely instrument there, and I just want to kick back, and that's I feel really selfish today because I just want to listen to you and feel good. Is that?
Okay.
Am I being greedy for that?
No, whatever you like. I have a song I'd like to play that was written by my friend Steve Poltz,
Awesome.
and it's actually a very unusual song, and I don't know if it's not exactly a happy song, but it's a very dramatic song, and I think people might get something out of it. It's written about, and there's a song. Johnny Cash wrote a song called I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. And this song is written from the perspective of the guy that Johnny Cash shot as he's dying, as they are dying.
Yep.
And it's not a true story. It's not a true story, but I used to play this song a lot. And because it's one of those songs that has no chorus. So there's a lot of lyrics to it. So I play it by myself a lot, but I thought it might be a good time to play it here. And maybe, I don't usually do this, but there may be a little bit of a trigger warning for people on this because it is a very dramatic song. It was an evening in Reno like any other. I was putting on my makeup and talking on the phone to my mother, saying I was going off to work, feeling like a liar and a jerk. I hung up that phone with a heart like a stone. Oh, the secrets we don't tell put us in hell. I was cooking up some eggs and tucking my thing between my legs, feeling like a big con as I was pulling up my nylon. I stood in the mirror and practiced my walk, turned the radio on and talked my talk. Little did I know tonight I would die. Takes a little bit of grease to make me look pretty. If I practice a bit, I smell sweet and witty. In my dress and my high heels, I grab my purse and shut the door. I might be for sale, but I ain't no whore. Tonight, like a cartoon, I'm off to the bar, where he's standing in the corner, all dressed in black. When he looked in my eyes, my heart went slack. And he stared into me like he could read my soul. And he took me outside for a moonlight stroll. Oh, the things we do, looking for love. Well, he said he was a singer in Nashville town, and his voice was rich and deep and brown. As he pressed against me, he felt so strong, but his kiss was soft as a country song. And we made love in the dark, in the back of the park. When he finished his business, he zipped his pants, and he started to scream and yell and rant. He said I was a freak, and it was wrong. And he was gonna kill me and put me in a song. He says if people ask, I'll say I shot a man just to watch him die. Well, he said my name was Johnny Cash, and I'm drawn to the devil and a magnet for trash. And I'm gonna shoot you to protect my life. As he pulled that trigger, I started to cry, and I fell in his arms just like trash. When the ambulance moments came, he was gone like lightning. I was trembling in the back, it was so damn frightening. Couldn't gather my breath, and it started to rain. But you can't stop death when it pulls like a train. And I was out like a light or a song. Well, my mother held a funeral and no one came. I don't hold any anger or any blame. I know that I ain't trash, I'm a beautiful soul. And Jesus still loves me with a heart of gold. Yes, my Jesus says I got heart of gold. It was an evening in Reno like any other. I was putting on my makeup and talking on the phone to my mother. Steve Poltz, everybody.
Wow, that was beautiful. Man, that was so beautiful. I was just sitting here just kicking back in my chair, absolutely. I didn't want to continue on with the show. I was just like, can I sit here and enjoy more of that? Fantastic stuff.
Would you like to hear another song then?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Please, please. It's always a pleasure.
There's only two songs that I sing that kind of have a bad ending, and that's one of them, so I don't want to leave people.
I like the darkness, man, because there's hope in it.
Absolutely. Everyone heads out to find their path in a life so full of storms. But we're not so tough that we've outgrown the road that leads us back home. Even the hardest heart will sometimes skip a beat when the world turns right side up and everything seems at peace. And the smallest crack can start to let in a little spark, even in the hardest heart. We try to stay the same until we see all our children need us to do. And the truth shines bright in their eyes. We must grow so they can too. Even the hardest heart will sometimes skip a beat when the world turns right side up and everything seems at peace. And the smallest crack can start to let in a little spark, even in the hardest heart. Some build a wall they can't get around that they want us to help them break through. For no one hides without needing to be found by the warmth that they once knew. Even the hardest heart will sometimes skip a beat when the world turns right side up and everything seems at peace. And the smallest crack can start to let in a little spark, even in the hardest heart.
Man, I love that song. It's such a beautiful song. We were talking about this. Thank you so much for playing for us. We're talking. You've got a video clip for this. And we're talking about this at the start of the show, and you've got a whole lot of footage of Yoda in it, from the baby Yoda from Disney. And we're talking that I'm scared to play it on the show because I don't want Disney to take my video down because they're so evil. So I'm so happy that you played it because I was going to go out with it, but it's such a beautiful song. It's so true too. Just, yeah. I'm really stoked I had this. I've had you on today because, you know, it's rare that you do an interview where you know, all the interviews I walk away feeling really good and have a really good time. But I'm buzzing right now. I'm literally buzzing. I feel like once I get off this interview, I'm going to go away and do the things that I need to do today and just really glide through them. So thank you, Ron. You've really inspired me today. I know you inspire me all the time. I'm a friend of yours on Facebook, and I want to ask you about this. You ask a lot of questions. So, folks, if you're not a friend with Ron on Facebook, now all the links are in the description to all his music and YouTube and all that stuff. Every day you ask him multiple questions. Tell us about this, when you started this. Why do you do this?
Well, about 2 years ago, I have a good friend of mine, David, who is he's kind of the opposite of me, and we get along really, really well. He's more of a natural listener, more of a natural extrovert, and I'm more of an introvert. And we always have discussions, and he talks about how when on Facebook everyone's talking, wanting to be heard, but there isn't even people who say, I want people to hear me, which is great. Everyone wants to be heard, but people don't listen very much. So I just started, I don't even remember how I did. I just started randomly, like, a lot of the personal growth stuff I do involves asking yourself questions or questioning things. So I started just saying, I'll come up with it. Anytime I have an interesting question, I'll post it. And I try to come up with one a day. And it ended up becoming, by far, I post a video, I'll get, I get lots of plays, but not maybe 10 comments or whatever. But usually people want to talk and they have something to say. Plus, I make a point of not doing anything that's explicitly in a controversial political statement. About something like, what do you think of abortion, or what do you think of Trump? The 5 words that are going to piss everybody off, and have people talk about stuff that's not, and it's very rewarding because people will just talk and talk. I went to a personal growth workshop last year. I went through a series of workshops that were very kind of masculine, positive masculine energy, being better, and that's where even the hardest heart, that's probably where it came from. And it was all these kind of tough guys that were actually kind of, more successful in business. And I tend to be the soft, sensitive type. And we kind of worked together because I made them a little more sensitive, and they helped me to be more tough. And we talk about all these really deep, profound things. And then at the end of one of the workshops, people started using the T word, Trump. And, I tend to be a left-wing guy. I don't care for Trump very much. And then I looked around, I realized most of the people I was with were actually Trump supporters. And one or two of them were like hardcore, like, Q people and all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
And yet, because we didn't talk about politics, we talked about the common humanity. It didn't even occur to me that I was in a room with people that, support someone that I personally find reprehensible, in many ways. It didn't even occur to me. And so I think part of it is, what do we really focus on, in our life? What do we focus on? Our common values, our common humanity. And it's not that you don't have to fight certain things, or you don't have to have your beliefs. But so anyways, somehow I think all that kind of led to me just like, let's try to have conversations that aren't about things that are going to make us kill each other.
Yeah. I really love seeing it in my feed because there is so much me. And I really love seeing that you ask people questions. I mean, it's what this whole interview thing is about. Like, I get a lot of people saying to me, oh, you interview people really well. And it's like, I don't. I just try to let people talk.
Indeed, even on most interview shows nowadays, I don't know if you remember Larry King.
Yeah,
he was a great guy that he was on CNN. He'd be doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
What do you have to say?
Yeah.
And even if it was somebody you didn't like, what you have to say. And then you got Piers Morgan, you got all these other guys that are kind of like, let's create and I'm not saying there's plenty of things you have to be conflict about, but I like to actually hear what people have to say once in a while, especially if they have something to say that maybe enrich my life or maybe see things a little bit different way.
Well, it's the key to therapy, really. That's why there's so many bad therapists out there. Because
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of people don't understand this about therapy, but when you go into it, you're paying money to actually eventually hear yourself. Right. So
Absolutely.
that's why they ask you so many questions and don't give you a lot of people go into therapy thinking they're going to get a magic answer at the end of however long it takes. And they keep paying and paying and paying going, I'm not getting an answer from this. And it's like, you have been since day one. The point of you talking is for you to finally actually start listening to what you're saying, because you're telling what your problems are. And as soon as you listen to them, that's when that's when you can stop paying. Listen to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I can, like I've said, I had that horrible experience with therapists, and I've gone, and 90% of the positive experiences I've had with that kind of thing, or ultimately someone just let me talk for a while and let me hear myself.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of like, okay, did you notice the way, okay, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of push in the right direction, but, so that's what I've gotten benefit, and that's what people want, and it's. I'm just very blessed. I have so many opportunities for that in my life now. I didn't have them, and that's the difference between pre-Happy Ron and Happy Ron is, I was able to get people to help listen and learn to listen to other people.
Yeah. Well, I've loved today sharing time with you. I think your music is incredible. I'm a big fan. I love what you do on Facebook. I really respect that. I don't respond to a lot of them because I don't Facebook very much. I scroll the feed and then just go, I can't even. I post a few things but I really love that you ask people questions. I love people that allowing other people to speak, because there's not enough of it going on these days. I just feel so blessed to have you on here, and I think your music does reach a lot of people and change people. So thank you for your music. Thank you for finding your happiness.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for. I mean, to me, the greatest people in the world are people like you that have helped create community on whatever level, because it's what people are really looking for. We're a tribe of people looking for our tribes. As somebody said, we're all looking for a place where we feel like we fit in, and the people that help facilitate that are the real heroes in my life.
Absolutely. Tribe is so important. So I'm going to ask you the final question I ask everybody. Thank you, Ivan Idea, for the kind super chat. He's just put that in there. Normally I will monitor these chat things, but today I've been so engrossed in this interview. I've really needed this. I think I said to you at the beginning of this, I was feeling really flat before this, and you've again, it's talking about, when you make music, you write music and you sing it for people. Oh, there's a super chat up there. There it is. Thank you, Ivan.
Super chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. But when you write music, when you play music for people, you often get so much out of it yourself. And I think people forget that. And like for this today, I was feeling really flat before this interview. And I just from talking to you, I feel electrified. I feel like I can get on with today. So thank you for that on a personal note. Guys, I'm going to hit you with the final question that I do. Now, I'm going to give you a choice too. Would you like to play us out with a song, or would you like me to play? I've got the Good-Hearted People queued up. I don't want to overwork you as well.
No, I think I prefer to play a song.
Of course.
Special.
Well, I'll hit you with the final question. I'll hit you with my final question that I ask everybody. It's not a hard question, trust me. It's quite an annoying question, really. If somebody, Ron, was considering becoming a creative person, when would you suggest they start?
You start right away, and it really just takes time, and it takes feedback.
Absolutely.
Don't think you're going to do it quickly, and don't not listen to feedback. It's the hardest thing to not do. But if you go up and play something and nobody likes it, and if that's what you want, great. But if you want people to like it, you see what you're doing, how you can communicate more. So just put the time in. I don't think there really is that much people that are natural musicians. I think there are people that put the time in and have actually listened to the world, listened to feedback when it's appropriate, and adjusted and improved what they're doing.
Absolutely. And that is the correct answer. Do it now. Now I'm just grabbing a link here before we cut to you playing. because after this show, guys, I want to encourage everybody. I'm going to copy this and paste it into the chat now. So we have an amazing artist within this group called the Lily Pillies, Manny from the Lily Pillies. I'm going to post that link in there. He's the Lily Pillies. Thanks, Russ. You're an awesome... Russ, what a great moderator. He did it for me. Thank you, Russ. I love you. Russ, you're the nicest man on the planet. Kisses for Russ. He'll hate me for that. The Lily Pillies have just released an album today, and they're having an album launch over on their channel. So that's the link. So it's in about 13 minutes time. So everybody, get your ass over there, all right? And support the Lily Pillies. So, yeah. All right, folks, all of the links for... Russ just wrote "fuck you" in the chat. Thanks, Russ. I love you too. But everybody, all of the links for Ron's stuff, his YouTube channel, go subscribe. SoundCloud, there's heaps of music on SoundCloud. His music, Facebook, Instagram, it's all there. So make sure you go do all the button pressing and all that stuff. And I'm going to let Ron take us out for today.
So this song was original for years was called "I Had Sex with an Angel" as one of my songs. A little shocking, and I was trying to be goofy. And then I was going to play it one day. I was playing it one day at open mic, and a little kid walked in with their parents. And I said, "Oh, I can't sing it like that." And so I changed it to "I Made Love to an Angel," and suddenly it became one of my best love songs.
Beautiful.
So. Just prove to you, being a smart ass doesn't always pay off. This song will have a special surprise. She was no dark temptress, no wannabe goddess. She only wants you to give what you can. She asked if I'd been round the block. I said, hell, I am the block. She said, I think I found the right man. I made love to an angel. I made love to an angel. I never knew that angels need love like we do. I always thought that I was too rough. I wanted to be enough. How could she want one who's so earthly? She always seemed neat and clean. I think that you know what I mean. I never thought she would say, let's get dirty. I made love to an angel. I made love to an angel. I never knew that angels need love like we do. I've waited my whole life for my feet to leave the ground. And now that she's arrived, I'm never coming down. I made love to an angel. I made love to an angel. I never knew that angels need love more than we do.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing, happy Ron Hill and his beautiful lady partner there who joined in. Thank you so much. I know she's there. Thank you so much. Thank you for playing us out, my friend. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. You know what? I hope you have a really wonderful day. I'll see you over the Lily Pillies. And I'm going to go out with saying my catchphrase. Do what makes you happy. Yeah? Just do it. Thank you so much, Ron. Stay on the line. We'll go out with the credits, and I'll say goodbye to you in private. So we'll just wrap up the show. See you later, everybody. You guys rock.